Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Film Odyssey podcast, where me and my brother trek through cinema on a quest to find the best films ever made. This season, we begin our journey by counting down the AFI top 100 films of all time. This week, we talk about The French Connection. So, Randy, we just got finished watching The French Connection. Gene Hackman, William Friedkin directed this. It's got Roy Scheider. You had very low opinions of this.
Well, yeah, and we had a small conversation before we started the record button, and not a big fan. It was fine, but I don't really see the whole hype behind it. Top 100 American movies of all time. You know, from what I've seen on screen, it's good. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. I'd probably give it like a 7, 7.5.
7.5.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a nice, well, not nice, you know.
It's a really gritty kind of crime story.
A gritty, the police versus the mob, taking down, the drug lords that are trying to invade this small borough. You said New York, but I'm pretty sure it's New Jersey.
It's somewhere over there. We're in California.
It's
Everything
some
past
very
the mountains is New
urban
York.
East Coast city. I'm pretty sure it's in New York or in New Jersey. See, you caught me. You get me slipping.
I'm getting you slipping.
And it follows Gene Hackman's character, who is kind of like this very forward, very aggressive, alcoholic cop, and he's trying to catch these perpetrators in his neighborhood. These people that are selling heroin. And he gets this gut feeling kind of out of nowhere about this guy, and goes after him for seemingly little reason.
I mean, he knows he's a crook, Well, or he has that gut feeling that he's a crime guy.
Yeah, at the very beginning of the movie, right? It's not set up very much, why he's after Boca. He just feels like it. Well, I mean, it kind of is set up. He's like, hey, this guy's hanging around these other, known criminals. I got a feeling about this guy.
Yeah, I haven't seen this guy around these circles. Who's the new guy?
Who's the new guy? Yeah, and he decides to tail him for 5 days without sleep.
That's Popeye Doyle. Always gets his man.
He's really that kind of character. The movie's based on a true guy.
Yeah,
a true story.
Yeah,
not sure how true to reality the movie is, because at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, fucking Popeye Doyle shoots an FBI agent while chasing after a suspect. And by shoot, I don't mean he grazes him. I mean he unloads 6 shots into the motherfucker. He's dead. He's dead as doornails.
Yeah, and we were not able to find evidence that Eddie Egan, the guy Popeye is based off of,
whether or not he shot a FBI agent during this, I'd have to read the book.
Yeah. I mean, okay. I guess going into, the backstory, because it's kind of important to the story.
I believe it's very important.
Very important. Because the film is based on a true story. It's based on one of the largest drug busts in New York history. It was 246 pounds of heroin. They got off of the SS France in 1968. The bust was really big. Eddie Egan and his partner were a part of this. And once the bust was the biggest thing on the newspapers and all that stuff, it was written as a true crime book by Robin Moore in 1969. And the characters, a couple of events were changed up because it was based on a real criminal case, and he basically wrote it as an adventure book. It's based on true events, but changed things to protect the innocent, right? And then the movie gets licensed. Fox Film puts it together. They put $2 million into the movie, and they pick up William Friedkin, who's pretty much an unknown director at the time, and tell him, here you go, here's $2 million, give us a gritty action movie based on this huge crime bust from a couple years ago while it's still in the public consciousness. And we get The French Connection.
They got the real guy on set, right, to work with William Friedkin?
Yeah, Eddie Egan came in and was really vital, because he was kind of the reason Friedkin didn't need to get a lot of permits, because he was an active duty New York police officer. He would just go into places and be like, that police business, you sit the fuck down, we're filming, don't worry about it.
Fuck, really?
Yeah, the scene where Popeye comes in with Roy Scheider's character? Rousseau, thank you. And they, start yelling at this fucking bar, and they just start pulling shit out of people's pockets, pulling drugs out, throwing them in the fucking drinks, and messing up all the fucking heroin, weed, pills.
Yeah.
Yep. Eddie Egan did that with Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman was like, hey, I want to know, like, what's it like being you? I'm trying to portray you in the film, method and all that stuff. And he's like, okay, let me show you something. And they just walk into a random bar, and he does that. He's just like, all right, boys, Popeye's here, stand the fuck up. And he just frisks these people.
No shit.
100%. He was, like, old school, like, walk into a bar, beat the shit out of people, and arrest them. He had...
A true Irish cop.
Yeah, I think I looked into it, and he had a recorded 8,000 arrests over 15 years on the NYPD.
God damn.
Yeah, so he was a serious motherfucker.
Cop.
Serious cop. Yeah.
Serious Irish cop.
Serious Irish cop. He was also, I guess, on the other note, like, kind of super racist.
Oh, it does come across in the movie.
It does come across in the movie. I don't think there's a scene where Gene Hackman doesn't say, like, a racial slur to somebody.
No. There's plenty of scenes where he doesn't. It's just there's also scenes where he does.
and he makes a point about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just like an interesting thing because it is based on a true story and certain events of it are really true to life. The scene where he's chasing the French heroin smuggler into the train station and they're jumping like back and forth into the train station and he gets away and waves at him. That's a true story. Eddie Egan or Popeye Doyle dressed as Santa Claus chasing a drug dealer through the streets of New York for like 6 city blocks. That's based on true events. Like lots of chunks of this are based on true events, and then some of them are very exaggerated for the screen, which artistic license.
I'm sure the shootout at the end is a little exaggerated.
Just a hair.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that even if the French mob was, surrounded by the cops, I'm not sure if they would actually try and shoot out with the cops, I'm pretty sure they'd just give it up.
I mean, you would think, but that was 70s heroin they were trying to save, Randy.
That's a lot of fucking money.
A lot of fucking money. But yeah, I mean, this movie also made a lot of fucking money.
Did it really?
Well, yes, it did. Because when this movie gets released...
1971, right?
Yeah, in 1971.
Pretty early for this type of film.
Oh, yeah. And when it gets released, it costs about $2 million to make. It makes $50 million.
Oh.
Yeah. Huge success. Financially.
That's big.
Real big. And it also gets nominated for 33 awards across, however many award ceremonies. It wins 22 of them, right?
Sure.
And
anything for Oscars?
5. It wins 5 Oscars out of 8.
Damn.
Including Best Picture, Director, Actor for Gene Hackman, Screenplay, and Editing.
Okay.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest hits in 71.
Did they have a special effects category that yet? No, right?
I believe, no, they did, because in 69, 2001 won for special effects. But you want to know what else comes out in 71, Randy?
What?
Last Picture Show, which we've already watched. And A Clockwork Orange, which we're going to be watching later on down the list. And also... Sweetback's Badass Song, one of the most influential blaxploitation films.
What the fuck?
It's one of the first blaxploitation films in 70s cinema.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and also George Lucas's debut film, THX 1138.
Okay.
Don't watch it. That one's actually kind of bad.
Okay.
But whatever. But yeah, this movie was huge when it dropped. It was a big financial hit, big critical hit.
Is it bad that I see oh yeah, it won Best Picture over A Clockwork Orange, and I'm like,
what the fuck?
No. At first I was like, wait a second, and then I was like, nah, makes perfect sense.
You started thinking about it, you're like, I mean, Clockwork Orange is the kind of movie you don't want to say is the best movie of the year.
Yeah.
You feel kind of weird about giving it to the movie with the really graphic rape scene.
Also, it's one of those movies where it's probably we're gonna get to it on the list, and it's gonna go into the category of do not recommend because it's a little graphic.
It's really good. S-tier filmmaking. Kubrick does not make bombs, but all
right, we're getting on a tangent about a different movie here.
Yeah,
but
back
to the French Connection.
Yeah,
I'm also surprised it won best picture, but seeing it up against these other movies, it's kind of makes sense.
Mm.
Because my main gripe about the movie is that it's not actually that good and it's not very deep at all.
Randy's
it's good, right? It's a decent movie, but
I look at this as almost like the origin story of all those 80s and 90s buddy cop movies.
Yeah.
That's kind of what this movie.
It's very influential on a genre, right? And it's, for its time, 1971, it's made really well.
Very impressive.
Very impressive for its time.
It feels a lot more modern than
it feels
some
like
of the
this
other
movie
movies.
probably came out, in 1980 something, 1982 or something like that.
Yeah.
It feels kind of ahead of its time.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, though, is that it's not all that impressive, and there's not real themes to dig in on under the surface. It's just kind of a story told.
I mean, there's a little theme here with Popeye's obsession.
Yeah,
because that's kind of the end of the movie where kills the FBI agent, and Russo's like, you just killed him, he's dead. And Popeye's like, don't worry, I'm gonna get that fucking guy. He's in here somewhere. And he goes off, and we hear just a gunshot.
One last gunshot.
And it cuts to black, and it just says, oh, and he was never caught, and Popeye and Russo were transferred to another unit, and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Popeye is a man of obsession. Because the whole movie is about him just being so obsessed with this black and white law and order, but he's not that much better than the criminals.
Yes.
And it's just, I feel there is theme. There is theme here.
The main thing we can get into is the character of Popeye.
Yeah.
And how he ties into Law and Order and his, supposed how he's supposed to act as a police officer and portray himself and, his actions, and how he kind of fails to live up to a good police officer, even though he makes the bust.
Yeah. I mean, on paper, Popeye is a rock star cop.
Yeah.
All these arrests. He is on the beat every night. He'll stay on stakeouts even if people give up because he got that gut feeling. Whether it's ripping apart the car looking for the heroin, which is also a great scene because it's just so long drawn out and it builds up kind of a lot of suspense. And you're like, is Popeye wrong? And it sends that doubt, and then oh no, he's not wrong. He was right. They just had
that extra determination.
It took Popeye to find it. Everybody else would have given up if it wasn't Popeye. And I'm like, that's good stuff for an investigator that you want. You want somebody to be obsessive about bringing justice, law, and order to the world, but he's to an unhealthy degree. I would argue.
The car chase, or train chase.
Yeah.
Where he's driving under the rail above I'm getting, it's got to be New York. Right?
It's New York.
We'll just say it's New York. I'm pretty sure they mentioned New Jersey in the movie.
Yeah.
We'll say it's New York. So he's driving under the rail in New York, right? And he's just plowing through traffic. I mean, just driving on the wrong side of the road. He gets hit. He hits things 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
While he's trying to chase this thing, but he gets his guy.
It's also not even his car. He literally just
carjacked some guy. Sped, fucking 20 miles or something.
Yeah. And that is also one of the scenes a lot of people point to as why this movie won Best Editing, why it's so remembered.
It was really good.
It's a fantastic chase sequence. Yeah. I feel you can learn a lot about building suspense and action just by studying that sequence.
It's cut together really well because you see the antagonist at the time.
Yeah. The assassin.
The assassin. I think he has a name, but he's the assassin.
Yeah.
And, we see his actions in the train car, and we see Popeye's actions as he's driving after him. It's cut really well together to where you get, this whole huge cat and mouse game between the two of them. The assassin kind of losing control of his situation, and Popeye almost losing control of his a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, it also goes into the fact that wasn't filmed with proper permits. They weren't able to close down huge blocks in New York City. Basically, William Friedkin and the stunt driver was like, all right, we're going to do this. We're probably going to be able to do it once. And we're just going to go through it, set up some cameras down the road. And if the car crashes and I die, it's fine. I don't have any kids. It'll be fine. That was literally what he told his cast and crew. Friedkin was under full knowledge that he could die doing this because they didn't close out traffic. When that car T-bones him, William Friedkin's in the passenger seat, crouched down because the passenger seat's out, holding the camera. So that car that T-bones him, if it hit him any harder, it would have just killed him. And they also hit granted, that one was planned. Him hitting the moving truck was not planned. Him skidding off and slamming against the fence, that was not planned. The only two things that was, dodging the woman in the baby and smashing through all the trash, and then them getting T-boned by that green Camaro. Those are the only two planned ones.
Or the 3 planned ones.
Yeah, those are the only 3 planned ones.
The hitting the truck was not planned, which is fucking crazy.
Goes to guerrilla filmmaking, because a lot of this was guerrilla filmmaking.
It's crazy too, because it's I'm surprised he only hit the truck.
Right? Because they're moving so fast.
He's hauling ass and just driving on the wrong side of the road. All he's doing is just honking. That's literally the only precautions he's using is, hey, please get out of the way.
that was a man's horn, Randy. It was like, no, get the fuck out of the way. It wasn't like, hey, let's be friends. It's a different kind of horn.
But it's, in that context, it might as well be saying, hey, let's be friends. When this guy is barreling through the street and going 70 on the wrong side of the road.
I mean, I want to agree with you saying this movie isn't living up to hype.
Here's the thing, is that the main things that qualifies this movie for the list don't actually involve what's on screen. What's on screen's good. It's pretty good.
I feel the editing is what's putting it on here. The chase sequences are on here. The fact that it basically compresses a year plus worth of time into 2 hours, that's pretty good.
I suppose, but the thing is that it's not all that impressive. Maybe for its time, 1971, but there's also other impressive movies that came out around that time. We got 2001: A Space Odyssey came out in 1969. We have
68, sorry.
Or 68. Clockwork Orange came out in the same year. Also impressive movies. This, sure, the editing's really fucking good, but to your average audience viewer, they're gonna be like, yeah, that's a pretty good crime flick. Yeah. And there's nothing really else there other than, sure, you can, scrounge up some meaning through, Popeye's portrayal as a police officer.
Well,
I really mean scrounge up.
Okay, I wonder if there's the other thing, because, yeah, it's lauded a lot for its editing, but also Gene Hackman's performance. He won Best Actor for this.
Yeah, he's pretty good in the movie. Doyle. He acts really well as Popeye Doyle. He really comes off as a complete character.
Yeah, Gene Hackman, he goes on to be in the conversation with being directed by Coppola.
Yeah. Great movie.
He's also the best Lex Luthor in Superman.
Okay, dude.
He is, I swear to God. But yeah, it's just a thing where I do want to give this movie as much credit
as you can.
As I can.
I'm over here being
look,
I don't know.
Look, it's the thing. It's the Yankee Doodle Dandy effect, right? Where Yankee Doodle Dandy's being held up by James Cagney.
I can see Yankee Doodle Dandy's cultural appeal, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
This, sure, it inspired other movies, but it didn't. I'm sure this didn't inspire too much in the wave of culture at large.
I don't know about that. This movie was huge. It got I feel without this movie, we don't get Lethal Weapon.
Okay.
Without this movie, we probably don't even get Starsky and Hutch or Miami Vice. Movies movies shows.
There weren't any cop drama with your partner before this. Come on, there's not a bunch.
But they were fairly clean. This was gritty,
sure.
Dealt with drugs. There's dealt with a very gritty, more realistic portrayal of urban crime. Because the other things are I'm trying to think of cop shows from the 60s that weren't the Andy Griffith Show, where it only counts because he's a dad.
We're just coming out of the 60s for this movie, early 70s.
New Hollywood just started a couple years ago with Bonnie and Clyde and Easy Rider.
Yeah, and so maybe I'm not giving this movie enough credit because I'm not taking in the time it came out in correctly.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it's it's pretty early on in the whole gritty movies thing.
Yeah, the amount of violence on screen here, I feel is still relatively shocking to audiences of the time. We're probably just so how many times did we play Grand Theft Auto that we've been desensitized?
Yeah. Maybe I'm just not giving it enough due credit. for the time it came out, for it to have all this impact on like the crime drama, the crime thriller, like flowering this genre, because it existed, mainly in like noirs, but kind of this flowering into like this more gritty, me and my buddy cop are out on the prowl looking for the drugs and like the dark underbelly of the city.
It's just one of those things where I feel it's the new Hollywood's answer to those like really gritty like crime dramas. Like that's what this is. But I guess let's talk about parts of the film that really stood out, I guess. Or is there anything in the film that really stands out to you within the context of just the film? Or do you really need that outside context to really hone into like what you think is important?
I think you need that outside context. Well, here's the thing though, is that chase scene, where he's chasing the train in the car, I think that scene's always good.
Yeah.
You don't need the outside context to know that scene's a banger.
What about the scene where he chases Frog One, the Frenchman?
Which chase?
Where chases him down into he chases him
subway?
Across the city, down in the subway.
Yeah, that's good. It's it's like this really, it's this really like nice cat and mouse. It gets kind of tense at some points. You're like, is he just gonna confront him? Are either one of them gonna confront each other? Because he gets made pretty early, right? And you think like, is he just gonna like confront Frog One? Is Frog One gonna turn around and confront him? Be like, hey, why you following me? And that like they have that little like game where they play getting off and on the subway over and over, and it gets almost like comical because it's so like Popeye is doing such a bad job at following him.
Yeah,
it's a really good sequence. I like it, but it's
AFI 100 good.
AFI 100. I mean, we've seen some freaking bangers already, and this one is like, the filmmaking was really cool. The editing is excellent, but exactly. Like I wish you could see me kind of like wave my hands in the air, like it's all fluff. Where's the substance? I need something.
You wanted that Blade Runner like
crunch into it.
You want that Blade Runner like philosophy text underneath this movie, which not that kind of movie.
Not that kind of movie. Maybe that's just my.
Well, here's the thing. We talked about Blade Runner as on the surface, it's like a really just a visually stunning like popcorn flick, right?
Yeah, and it has the stuff underneath.
This I feel is just. It's really digging onto being like this popcorn flick kind of thing, right? There is, I ain't gonna insult William Friedkin. There is deeper meaning and other things going on in the film, but at the end of the day, modern audiences are gonna be like, okay, this is just a kind of a crime thriller.
Yeah.
Right?
The deeper meaning stuff is like fewer and far between comparatively to something like Blade Runner.
Yeah. So, do you think it as a flick works?
Yeah, it's really good for that.
All right. Popcorn flicks for modern audiences.
Yeah, it's totally serviceable as like a popcorn flick for like a modern audience because it's still just it's still just a good, cop crime drama catching, the mob in the act.
You watch a couple episodes of Law and Order, where this comes from,
or whatever. Any of these like true crime dramas, or not even true crime,
or police procedural.
Police procedurals. There you go. And this will fit right in with those. I mean, it kind of inspires a lot of these, because you have like the one cop like way overly aggressive, and you have the other cop he's just kind of there.
He's more even-handed, and he's just like, I'll follow your lead, but I'm gonna rein you back when you take the step too far.
Exactly.
And it always comes down to that cat and mouse. It's like, oh, the one guy is going to take that step too far, and the other guy's not going to be able to hold him back, and it's the fallout from that,
I mean, you can see that, like, most, like, visually apparent in the, like, final scene, where Rousseau is being, like, very cautious going through this, like, abandoned, like, factory, looking for Frog One, and Popeye is literally just standing out in the open with his gun out.
Popeye's walking like the Terminator.
He's
just
walking
through
like
these
the Terminator through this freaking like abandoned factory or whatever, and Rousseau's like running from cover to cover, like sneaking around, and you can just see like this complete disregard for like his own personal safety from what's it called, from
the Frenchman.
No. Popeye.
There you go. We
God.
got there.
Yeah, you can see this complete disregard for his own safety from Popeye. You know, he's just tunnel visioning so hard into Finding Frog 1. You kind of see like this like cool disconnect from like the two characters. But we don't really know much about Rousseau, so does it matter much that he's like this foil to him?
Well, that's the thing. I feel like a lot of this movie is just focusing on Popeye, because Popeye is the one who's making things happen. He's the dedicated one. Rousseau is mostly just...
He's the over-dedicated one.
Over-dedicated one. Rousseau is being like the straight-laced police officer, right?
Yeah, and he's just kind of being dragged around by Popeye all over the place. I mean, when they take stakeouts, you know, usually Rousseau's like caught up, you know, he's either sleeping or he's like talking to one of the other police officers, you know, when something happens. You know, and Popeye has to notice it for everybody else.
Yeah. It's just it is interesting because we're talking about these things and they're going to sound like tropes to a lot of people, but this probably invented the trope.
This probably invented the tropes, or at least popularized them.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing about, like, you know, Popeye being a hero cop, but he's not actually a hero.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like...
We get the Punisher a couple years after this, people. All right.
You know, maybe I'm not giving. You know, I'm turning around on the French Connection here. Maybe its influence is just like, you know, because
so deep, people are missing
that
it.
I'm like, you know, I couldn't see the forest through the trees. You know, like it was like right there in front of me. All these different tropes, all these different like things I see now in these crime dramas. Like they all tie back to the French Connection. The French Connection being like this huge crime movie, kind of early on in this genre, where I couldn't see the forest through the trees. You know, it was right there in front of me. This thing is actually hugely significant to movies as a whole. I just couldn't see it.
Yeah. I mean, judging by even its like filmic qualities, I'm gonna go back to the editing because that's like the most technically
it's
impressive
really good.
thing here. I'm
pretty much a layman when it comes to movies, and it was good.
Yeah. I mean, like that. You know, that's the point we have you on the podcast. You know, you're the layman who's really into philosophy and stuff.
And you're the person who's like, I can tell you all the names of all the cuts.
I can try. But yeah, I mean, the editing in this, I feel even that alone, if we ignore everything, it's so impressive here. I believe on like reappraisal, the editing on this is put on like the best editing films of all time list, like all over the place. I think the AFI did a list of the best edited films, and this was on there of like their top 10.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, well, actually, I would probably be kind of surprised because, you know, I haven't seen all these movies.
Yeah. We're getting to it.
It's kind of like, really, this best edited? I mean, it was good and all, but best? Like, one of the best?
It's pretty good.
I mean, well, I know that, like, in school, you studied this movie specifically for the editing, correct?
Unironically, yeah. And when I was in film school, I took a bunch of editing classes because I was in, like, production tracks. And we literally had a whole class where we studied the French Connection's editing. Most, like, the chase sequences, those ones we did a lot. The opening sequence where Popeye is chasing the drug dealer through the streets of New York. He's dressed up as Santa Claus. And it's like, how does the editing help the character introduction? How does the editing build suspense? How does it pay off? How do you build two intercutting, like, narratives going on when they're intertwining and they're going to connect at the end? Like, it's really impressive.
Yeah, because they do a pretty good job of interconnecting the story that's, you know, originally taking place in New York, let's say. I'm not going to get over this, that I don't know where it is.
It's in New York!
This, like, story that's taking place in New York, but then we also have the beginnings of the other side of the story taking place in France.
Yeah. That's the thing. The movie crosses vastly...
French Connection. Oh my god.
Oh, I know.
I'm just joking.
But yeah, the movie crosses 2 continents. It compresses, like, 2 years of time into, like, a 2-hour film. It shows the obsession and evolution of Popeye Doyle.
Evolution?
Sorry. It shows his obsession and, I guess, degradation or downfall. I don't even know if it's a downfall. It
doesn't change.
It's like a character study or a character analysis of this guy over this period of time. And I feel how the movie's also cut together, the action sequences, even some of the dialogues, like, it's done in a way that's just so impressive to watch on, like, a technical aspect. And then it's just wrapped around a pretty, I guess now, by the numbers crime film that was probably hugely original in 1971.
Oh, these things I do not know.
You know, what happens.
As far as I know, this is actually like a total ripoff of some 1965 freaking crime drama.
Yeah, you know.
I don't know these things, but as far as we know, this thing is completely brand new for its time. Well, not brand new, but really new for its time. Really, really out there.
I mean, again,
I might have been a little facetious by saying, it could have been a ripoff of 1965 crime drama, because I freaking highly doubt that.
Yeah, like this is very much just early new Hollywood. It's showing New York as this gritty environment. It's before Taxi Driver comes out. It's just, I feel it's an important film.
I think something that kind of like helps date the movie for me.
It's the plane ticket, isn't it?
Well, yeah. We were when we were watching the movie, when he who is it?
Devereaux, I think, or Bucco.
I don't know. One of the mob guys buys like a plane ticket to Washington to go like meet up with his connection, right? And one of the agents just like walks up and buys a ticket right behind him for the same flight. But all of this is just, you walk into the airport, you go up to the teller, you're like, "Hey, I want a ticket round trip Washington DC, $45, get on a plane and go."
Is that
you just
easy?
Walk into the bitch. Like
before terrorism.
I'm like, good lord. These things help me. Like, I like when he like gets to Washington, I was sitting there thinking like, holy shit, this is before they banned automatic weapons in the US.
That's what crossed your mind.
I was just like, wow, this really helps me like date this thing. Like this happened this 50-year-old movie at this point.
Yeah. It's 50 years old and it feels generally really modern.
Yeah, like you could, put a new coat of paint on this thing and I would believe it came out 10 years ago.
Yeah. You do the 4K restoration on it. Like you might be able to pass this off a little bit.
It's funny because some of the scenes, specifically where people get into a car, it looks like it's like as if it was shot on like 240p digital.
It was shot on Shitio.
It was shot on Shitio. Like most of the scenes in the movie look great, but there's like a couple of scenes where it's just like some guy getting into a car. I'm like, what bottom of the barrel film stock did they use to film that? It looks awful.
Here's the thing, because this movie, I said $2 million budget, but that was not a lot of money for this kind of a movie.
I was going to ask you that earlier and I forgot all about it. Like, it's not a lot of money?
Not particularly for, like, the car chases, the actors, all this, the real heroin they bought.
Then, oh, come on now.
The heroin test they did is completely legitimate. Popeye Doyle, Eddie Egan showed them how to test it for real on film, and also went and scored them heroin for the film.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So, what's the name of the director again?
William Friedkin.
William Friedkin. That guy's a legend.
He makes The Exorcist a couple years after this.
This guy is a legend for making this movie the way he did. Absolute fucking legend.
I mean, bruh, I ain't even done yet. So, yeah, score some heroin and all that stuff, but $2 million, they have no permits for anything.
Yes.
The other big thing that's going on
Another thing, though, is that it wasn't just William Friedkin that made this movie possible. It was also Doyle.
Oh, yeah, Eddie Egan.
Or Eddie Egan.
Yeah. We can call him Popeye. I think
Popeye, fine. Whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just...
Well, the real guy, though, not Popeye.
Eddie
Egan.
Not Hugh Jackman.
Not Hugh Jackman.
Not Hugh Jackman. Gene Hackman.
Fuck. Gene Hackman. At the beginning of this movie, I was like, that's not Hugh Jackman. I was like, wait, fuck, it's not Hugh Jackman.
Do you think Hugh Jackman is just like 90 years old and has just been rocking the Wolverine look since like 74?
I just forgot, alright, shit. I didn't know when this movie came out, alright, when it started.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
True, alright. This movie could have come out in the fucking 90s for all I knew when I watched this movie.
Oh.
But now I know.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah, but back to the thing. So, back to what I was getting at. So yeah, shot on Shitio thing. So what it was William Friedkin told went in with the actors and they would say, okay, this is what you're going to do, da-da-da-da, all right. you know, you're going to walk in over here, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. Okay, you're going to beat this guy up. Cool. And then you get to a cinematographer, he's like, all right, you're going to start in the room over here, follow the action. He wouldn't tell the cinematographer, the camera operator,
Sure.
what the fuck was going on. And he's just said, just follow it around like you're in a documentary.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's why a lot of the stuff when they're like in places where it's like, the camera's like whipping around and like following these guys and it's kind of shaky and it's like really like fly on the wall, like we're just in this environment. Yeah, it's because that's how it was shot. Like there's very few scenes in this where the camera's locked down and stationary. It's always moving. And the interesting thing is because they had to do it like that, they had to use a pretty like really fast film stock to like catch a lot of light. So when they're in cars, they're using like the fastest shit they can get because it's all natural lighting. There's no like halogen lights.
There was a lot of like kind of like strange lighting choices if it wasn't done naturally. Mm-hmm. Like there's one where well, what's the guy's name? Is like Daco or something like that. Baco. B-A-C-O? Isn't that the guy's name? Buco.
Well, yeah.
Boca. Sal Boca.
Sal Boca. Sorry.
All right, we got there, boys.
It started with a B.
But there's like a scene where Sal Boca like drives up someplace and you can't see him through the windshield because of the glare.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's really weird, but it makes way more sense when it's like, well, everything was shot as is, you know, like
this was shot like a dock.
They didn't just set up all these like lights and whatnot so you wouldn't get glare on the car so you could see him easily pull up, you know, that it's just how it was. And it's cool. I like it.
It adds into another reason this movie is like kind of cool is because it's so guerrilla.
Yeah, I was coming into this like being like, man, this movie shit. I'm gonna shit on it during the podcast. I'm gonna stay, put my flag down. And by the end of this, I'm like, fuck, this movie's actually great.
It's one of those things where it's like, on the first viewing, I can totally understand why you wouldn't like this, because I actually...
well, it's not that I didn't like it, it's just I was like, well, it doesn't live up to the hype, to the top 100, you know?
And now that we're talking about it, you're like, it kind of does.
Not that it kind of does, it pretty much does. Like, it does to a good extent, too.
It hits pretty much all the things that AFI wants to hit.
Yeah, I'm like, I started coming into this with like the idea that like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be like, take it off the list. It's not even good enough for the list, and now I'm like, bump this thing up. This is looking pretty good.
Okay, actually, you wanna just get to that part where it's talking about like where it is on the list.
No.
We still got a few
more to talk about.
We got more to talk about. All right, well let's talk more about the movie.
More about the movie,
because we did talk about like. Yeah, I guess we spent a lot of this podcast explaining like why it's important, but let's talk about the actual movie. I guess.
Another scene that stood out to me was a sniper.
Yeah, okay.
Which is like a crazy scene,
right? Because it's like I feel that one is really told by the editing, because like those like pops or whatever are probably done with like sticks in the ground, some dirt over it, and some pull string, and then it's like all the sound that goes in. It's intercutting with the guy up on the roof, and that's another thing where it's like a couple of tricks and a couple of trick shots, a couple of probably pretty cheap effects.
Yes,
like firecrackers or whatever, and then some sound design and a couple of like cutting back and forth, and boom, you have this very intense sniper sequence.
Yeah, this very intense sequence where Gene Hackman, Gene Hackman is ambushed by a sniper on top of this, like, I don't know how else to describe the building other than this like commie block.
it's like a project's apartment building.
Yeah, it's a project's apartment building, commie block. He's like ambushed by the sniper on top of this project's apartment building, and the sniper like shoots this woman who's like pushing around like a stroller.
Yeah,
it's a really gritty scene, and just thinking about that Popeye is saved because this assassin shot this woman with her like newborn baby
and killed her. She's not on the ground like writhing in pain. She's fucking dead. And I'm like, that's something you couldn't get away with, that kind of shit now. I don't think you could in a mainstream Hollywood movie.
I'm sure you could. Just have Quentin Tarantino direct it.
See, that's the thing. You gotta have Tarantino. You gotta have
You gotta have somebody who's known for, doing this, really gritty stuff and have
Like,
him film it.
right? And I'm like, man, there's some shit. Okay, because that's what I keep coming back with this movie. It's like, man, there's shit in this you could not do anymore.
Like what?
How about, like, man, we're just gonna, get a couple of cameras. I'm gonna blow through.
Okay, but now people would just film that on a soundstage or whatever.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, but I mean, this is borderline independent cinema, dude.
Oh, it's not. Well, here's the thing: is like any movie in which 30% of the filming would be illegal. Like, you might as well throw it out of Hollywood. You're like, this is just not gonna fly.
That's why Werner Herzog doesn't, show up in Hollywood more often. But
his movies are that illegal.
Literally, his film, he does a film class or whatever, and it's not about film techniques. He's like, you can learn that. I'm showing you how to fake documents, how to pick locks, how to lie to police officers, and hide your equipment to cross borders and shit. That's his film class. Yeah, Werner Herzog's a crazy person. But yeah, that sniper scene is just really good. And also, we get to see Gene Hackman.
No, go ahead.
We get to see Gene Hackman shoot up 6 flights of stairs and then, become the Flash and slide down the 6 flights to chase the assassin across 15 city blocks. Oh yeah,
that's kind of a funny suspension of disbelief moment where he goes up this building, he gets to the roof, the sniper's gone, but he has time to look at the rifle, look at all these empty casings lying next to it. He looks over the edge of the building, he sees the gunman running off into the street, and then suddenly he just down 6 flights of stairs out onto the street, and he can still see the guy off in the distance running.
And I'm like, Popeye Doyle's real superpower wasn't being an obsessive cop.
It's instant transmission, obviously.
Dude, it was cardio.
Fucking
cardio.
Oh my god,
Gene Hackman is sprinting in 90% of this movie, I swear.
And he somehow still catches up to the guy almost on the platform, and then it spurs the whole chase scene. Also, this movie flows really, really well.
Yeah, I'm always of the opinion that the second half of this movie is a masterpiece of editing, suspense, action, thrills. The first half is just a really slow procedural kind of crime drama.
Well, it's this whole thing where at the beginning of the first half of the movie is you're not sure
what's going on.
Well, you're not even what's going on. You're pretty sure what's going on, but the whole thing is that you're not sure if they're gonna let Popeye go after these guys. They're like, last time we had you go out on a hunch. An officer got killed, and then Popeye tries to kill the guy that just said that.
Yeah, Popeye takes shit from no one.
He ain't taking shit from nobody. But he basically the whole first half of the movie is that happening over and over and over again, where it's oh, Popeye, I don't know.
When are they gonna let Popeye off the leash and let him go?
Popeye, you have all these hunches all the time, and all you bring in is these low-level drug dealers, these bus boys with joints in their socks. We don't really get nothing big off of you. This whole idea that Popeye, you're a good cop and all, but your hunches, they get you nowhere. You don't really get the big fish. A man one of the guys on the force died off of one of your hunches. I don't know. And so you're not sure where they're going to go with it. Is it going to be one of these things where it's, the movie takes this turn to where, Popeye, just misses them, and doesn't get to catch him, and it's this whole thing at the end where, this, destruction of his character because he, doesn't catch the guy. Mm-hmm. You're not sure if you don't know the backstory whether or not that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then it gets to the second half of the movie and where it's, really picks up because you're like, oh, it's on. It's happening.
Shit's happening.
How can we not go after these guys after the sniper goes after Popeye? You know something's going down when some guy with a Mosin and a gun on top of a 6-story building is shooting at you. You're in some deep shit.
Yeah, look at Kennedy.
Oh no.
But
Was
yeah,
that a Mosin?
I don't know.
Okay, never mind.
You're the gun guy. But yeah, it's one of those things where the movie just really picks up in the second act. Or in the second half. And I'm like, I'll go on record. The second half of this movie is a masterpiece. It's wonderful. It's just, I feel the first half is just, it's even, Dad, when we were talking to him in between, recording and watching the movie.
Oh yeah, he said it was slow too.
Yeah, and he saw this shit in the theater.
Maybe.
Probably. He'd
be almost old enough too. He'd be 11 when this came out.
Yeah.
No, he'd be 10.
Bruh, let's be honest here. Like, Granddad took him to see, like, Hang 'em High, Fistful of Dollars, all that shit in the 60s when they're 5. If it was at a drive-in on Friday night, yeah, Dad probably saw it. My father has seen all the Evil Deads in the theater, by the way.
Goodness.
Yeah.
I'm really coming around on this movie. This is crazy. I wasn't expecting this at all.
Well, what really brought you around? Is it something inside of the movie now that we get to talk about more inside of it, or is it still the outside stuff? Or do you think the inside of the movie is actually holding up?
It's this combination. Well, the inside of the movie is like, I wasn't upset or anything. I didn't think, the movie's trash because of what I saw on the screen. It was the outside influences, and whatnot. Like, the thing on the screen is really good, but I just didn't find any of that stuff, like, beneath that I wanted to, right? And then we started talking about it more, and I'm like, no, it's actually all there. I just needed to kind of massage it in there, the like ideas behind it, and like the influences that those movies had, and the editing and how the characters interact, and just kind of like needed that time to like massage all these ideas into my brain and be like, no, actually, push up my glasses on my nose, actually it's pretty good, all things considered.
I mean, I feel the filmmaking techniques on display here are also like top notch.
Yeah, really good.
Very good.
Because that whole idea of, telling the guy with the camera, like, hey, just follow him around. Do it like a documentary, in your $2 million budget movie. That's crazy. That's something that, like, people do today as, like, an artistic choice because they're like, oh, that stuff that they did in the French Connection with the bar, and they just kind of, like, follow them around with the camera. Yeah, let's do that.
It's also the details in this movie, which I love.
True.
One of my favorite, like, little details in the movie, how when they're on the beat, and Popeye throws his, like, little straw hat in the back of the car?
Yes.
That's, like, the signal to all the boys. Freaking said this in, like, the commentaries and all that stuff. Is like, that was Eddie Egan's or Popeye Doyle's signal to the boys. It's like, hey, we're on the beat. Don't ticket the car.
Ah,
yeah.
That's cool, actually.
Yeah, it's like, hey, we're on a stakeout. Leave us alone. And I'm like, those little DSOs are cool.
Little details are cool.
Also, when they go in and they, rough up that music bar or whatever. Or they rough up that bar in the neighborhood. And why I love this, when he goes in there and busts all these guys, starts arresting everybody, it's just an excuse for him to talk to his informant.
Yeah.
Takes him to the bathroom, they're talking, he's like,
he
all right,
gets
cool.
3 arrests on his way to talk to his informant.
Yeah. And also, he's talking to his informant, he's like, all right, man, which side? And he's like, oh, this side. And he just punches him in the mouth and walks out. And I'm like...
pushes him out, because he's got to make this whole scene...
makes the guy look legit or whatever. And I'm like... Watching that for the first time, I'm just like, oh man, Popeye's gonna go in there and commit a fucking hate crime. This is gonna get real. Oh, hey!
Because it's revealed that, he's got these racist tendencies earlier in the movie. He drops the N-bomb before this, and then, he's trying to meet this, African-American informant, right? In the back of his,
this bar
or whatever, in the bathroom. And at first, you don't know who the guy is. And so you're like, oh, he's just going to beat the shit out of this guy. And
this is going to get real dark.
He's going to say, he's going to drop all these, racial bombs or whatever, like beats the shit out of this guy in this bathroom. And then it's like, oh, wait, it's an informant. And they're like friends.
And I'm like, what the fuck is this?
It like totally takes that whole, like, your whole expectation of the scene, like totally flips it around.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah, and honestly, it's one of those things where it's like, I really like that. My favorite part of that is when he's just like, okay, which side? Doesn't say it's like, all right, we got to make this look good. Like, a lot of movies, like now, those crime things, like, all right, what are we going to do to make this look good? And the informant's the one, take a swing at me. Probably just like, give me a side. That's all he says.
They already know. They've
been through this.
They've been through this before.
Yeah, and I really dig that. And also when they're going through the car, and the camera goes through this intense detail of them tearing the fuck out of this car.
That seems really good when they tear apart the car.
Yeah.
Because it's like the whole crux of the movie. You're at this like last part. You know something's going on. Some guy shot at Gene Hackman before this. And so it's like, something's going on. They're close. And Popeye is tearing apart this car that they found just abandoned by the waterfront. And they're just getting so gritty into it, They pop open the hood, they like rip out the steering column, They like,
tear all the floor, all the carpeting.
Out.
Popeye even starts cutting through like the felt shit on the ceiling.
The felt ceiling, the side paneling. They take out like they take off the doors from the car. They check inside the wheels. they open they actually open the what's it called, the gas too.
Oh yeah, they pop open the fucking gas tank.
Yeah, they drain the gas tank too, looking for this heroin or whatever it may. They don't even know it's heroin yet.
They just know that there's something dirty with the car.
Something dirty with the car, And then they have that, like, that last desperation, that little epiphany moment being like,
how much did the car weigh when it came in?
How much did the car weigh? Well, factory, it weighs 120 pounds less.
Where's that extra 120 pounds coming?
It's gotta be there somewhere.
Mechanic's like, only thing I didn't take off were the fucking rollers or the side riders.
Whatever they are. The things under the doors.
And Popeye just says, "You dumb son of a bitch."
He's like pissed. He's like, "Oh, I told you there's something here. You didn't check everywhere?" And the guy's like, "I checked everywhere. Just not that one place."
And they crack him open and they find 120 pounds of fucking heroin in there.
Now, here's another thing that's like, a total subversion of my expectations is they give the car back to the guy.
That's the craziest part. Because also, that mechanic ain't getting paid enough. Because that car looked immaculate when they gave it back.
No, they probably just got a new car, right?
Oh, no. They rebuilt it. I want to say they rebuilt it.
No, they did not.
In my heart, they
Get out of here. No,
that car is fucked, though.
Yeah, they fucked that car up. But yeah, they end up, like, getting another Lincoln and then reinserting the heroin into the side panels or whatever the fuck they're called. They're actually called.
Mm.
They're like rollers or some crap.
Or riders or whatever.
Riders, yeah. And they reinsert it into this, like, part of the car. They give it back to the guy, and then they set up this, like, roadblock outside of, like, where the deal goes down. Which is fucking crazy. They actually gave the car back to the guy.
Yeah, and when they were cracking it open, in my mind I was just like,
it's gonna be empty.
It's gonna be empty. This is gonna be like Popeye's like double crossing the guy, and they're gonna kill the fucking Frenchman in there, and then they're gonna like go in.
Yes. But
they crack it open as the heroin, and then he gets all the money. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, is the Frenchman gonna get away again? Is he too smart? Is he just gonna be that one step ahead where he's like again against Popeye, and then there's like, oh, Popeye does the wave, and they run back, and they have the whole shootout.
Popeye ends up not catching Frog 1.
He doesn't.
He gets away.
And it's like, that's the kind of thing where it's like, in the headcanon of this, it's like one case, right? You've seen all like those cop shows or movies or whatever, where it's like, the cop has the one case, that keeps him up at night, where they drink, and they try and like figure it out. Where the fuck did this guy go?
It's also kind of like this idea where Popeye was like, he flew too close to the sun. By giving, like, the car back to them or whatever, flew too close to the sun, He wanted to catch everybody all in the act, and he ends up not catching Frog 1.
Not catching the one guy he wanted to catch.
The one guy he wanted. Frog 1. Doesn't get him.
They could have stopped him on the drive over that bridge, and they would have gotten him cold. Easily. But he got greedy.
Gets away.
Got greedy.
He wanted everything. He flew too close to the sun. His wax wings dripped away. And
heroin.
He shoots the fucking FBI agent.
Shoots him fucking dead.
He's, drop your gun. He fucking dies.
Gone.
Also, the guy's name is like Mulder or something like that. And I was like, is this where they get it for?
If you want a Mulder cameo, watch Twin Peaks. David Duchovny shows up.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I really dig this movie, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a lot better than I thought it would be. It's for damn sure.
Yeah, it's for damn sure.
I came in here being like, oh, it's going to be good, but it's not going to be anything crazy. And then after watching it, I was like, that was actually less than I expected. And now after talking about it, I'm now like, well, that was way better than I expected.
This movie really benefits
I went on
from
a
discussion.
roller coaster of thoughts about this movie to where I am now being like, that's actually really fucking good.
Yeah. Honestly,
the guerrilla filmmaking is just like a whole catalyst on this, where the movie itself is good, and then you take like this whole everything around it, and like builds it up to be like way better than it seemed.
Honestly, that's the crazy thing, because you're on this roller coaster of emotion, and
roller coaster of like of
opinion, yeah. So, because I've seen a lot of people who have gone on to do like the AFI re-examination,
sure,
and routinely they say this movie doesn't deserve to be on the list. They say that it's not that good. There's better there's better other movies. And I would argue that if you were gonna take this off and put another Friedkin movie, it should be The Exorcist.
The Exorcist is great.
Yes.
As far as I know, I've not actually seen it.
Don't worry.
Judge me.
When we finish this, we'll watch The Exorcist. We'll
Sure,
watch
sure,
all the
sure.
movies that should be on here.
Oh God.
Yeah, but that's like a thing. And also, this movie did have a drop from the 98 to the 07 list.
Really, how much?
70 to 93.
That's a pretty big drop.
Pretty big drop.
But
Yeah,
still on the list.
still on the list. 23-point drop. But that's like, I guess the thing I want to ask you: does it go? Does it stay?
No, it should definitely stay. Here's like kind of like the idea I kind of get with this film and like how people perceive it and whatnot. It's one of these things where you're trying to like review the AFI Top 100. There's a lot of movies on here. There's like over 200 hours of movies.
Yeah.
So you just watch them all, but you don't really get a lot of time to spend with each one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So you watch something like The French Connection, you're like, it was good, it was alright, I don't think it should be on the list, and you just kind of move on, right?
Mm.
You don't really think about it. If you're trying to do this whole big retrospective, where you just take it as a whole, you kind of like go like, oh yeah, this movie was this movie was this. You're not going to spend 6 months on your like 2-page paper about like a retrospective on the AFI Top 100. You're going to spend like 2 weeks. You refresh on a couple of movies, you watch some video essays, yada yada.
Yeah.
You kind of speed run the AFI Top 100, and then you go French Connection and get it out of here. It's probably why it dropped a bunch on the list. It's probably just like somebody they get like the council, they
the,
get
the council of the AFI.
the council of the AFI.
Skeletor, Doctor Doom, Lex Luthor, they're all on there.
These guys show up in like dark cloaks into like this castle basement. They sit around like a round table with like a skull with a candle on it, and they decide what movies to put on the AFI Top 100.
Ladies and gentlemen, in canon, that is what we legitimately believe happens when they vote for the AFI.
Yes,
100.
exactly. And one of the guys there who's let's say half the council, quote unquote, was like newer to this, and they were like they watched the French Connection like once, and they didn't really think much about it, and they're like, meh, drop it down. It's fine. Keep it on there, but drop it down a little while. Yeah. And there's like the older guys who've maybe seen it 3 or 4 times, and they're just like, oh, the movie's actually amazing. Do you know when that movie came out? I was alive when that movie came out. The people that weren't alive when the movie came out are like, eh.
I wonder if, I don't know if I agree with that, but I mean, there is some validity to that, because some movies, it's just the thing where it's like, you don't know why they're important unless you were there, kind of thing. This should probably hit different in 71. Like, if we were in the movie,
really
if we went to a movie theater in 1971 and everything we saw before this is like, the most radical shit was like Bonnie and Clyde and Easy Rider, and we see the French Connection, this is probably like my socks blown off. Like,
Star Wars isn't out yet.
Yeah, we haven't gotten Star
Jaws
Wars.
isn't out.
Jaws ain't out yet.
All Goodfellas isn't out. Well, Goodfellas comes on way later.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be next on our list.
But like but like a bunch of movies you think about are not out yet. They don't exist.
Spielberg doesn't have a career yet. Scorsese doesn't have a career yet. De Palma doesn't have a career yet. Literally, like, I don't. Coppola has not made The Godfather yet. Like, that's like.
I wish you could see my reaction when he said that. I'm like, right, exactly. Like this movie just sits in like this weird, or not, like it does sit in like a weird era of filmmaking. Like right in this in between section where it's hard to like separate it. To be like, well, it's part of New Hollywood, but actually it was like right before that.
No, it's in New Hollywood. It's just like it's the early stages of New Hollywood, because New Hollywood starts with like Bonnie and Clyde, Easy Rider, and all those.
Yeah, but when you think about like the big hits of New Hollywood, you think about a lot of Spielberg and Scorsese and this stuff.
You get your Taxi Drivers, you get your Jaws, you get your
But this is in that early section where it's like, no, guys, remember it started here, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so I kind of come in with all these assumptions where it's like, oh yeah, it's coming out in the same era as all these movies, and it's like, no, really, it came out before that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it came out in the era of like New Hollywood. It's like there's so many great New Hollywood
capital
films.
New.
There's so many amazing films in New Hollywood. A lot of the movies on the AFI are New Hollywood movies for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also a thing where it's like, this movie is like, it's at stage 1 New Hollywood, not like stage 2, 3, 4, 5 of New Hollywood before it implodes in like the 80s, like 81. you know. And this, I feel the movie's like, also the cultural impact of this movie alone, I think keeps it on the list. No matter what, cultural impact alone would keep this on the list. Which is something I
underestimated at first, and then I was like, oh wait, before this is the 60s, there really isn't any gritty crime dramas.
Nothing on this level.
Nothing on
nothing I can think
of. Nothing where the woman with the baby gets shot by a sniper.
Yeah, I mean, like, Bonnie and Clyde's the closest we get, and that's 67, I think. And I mean, that one was like gritty. It's the first use of squibs in movies.
Really?
For Bonnie and Clyde? Yeah.
That's the first use of squibs in 67?
I think so.
That's insane.
It's either the first use of or most extensive use. I think it is the first use of 67.
The first big use.
Either the first big use or the first use period. I'd have to look it up, but it is like really early. And
that's crazy.
Yeah. But dude, we were fucking Puritans for like ever. Don't worry about it. But
goodness.
Yeah, so now that I told you that, you're just like, my God, the new Hollywood changed everything.
Yeah, it really did. You know, and this movie kind of being like not totally at the forefront, but kind of in that area.
Yeah, it's within the first 4 years, right?
And it's just crazy. This movie's actually like tons better than I thought it was, just because of like the context, you know.
Mm. Which is, I kind of like, that's why I kind of like bringing it up, because some of these movies, you really need context to understand, like, why this is so hardcore.
Because if this was like 100, best movies just by what's on screen and the themes and not, the culture impact or the time they were made, this thing would probably fall off the list pretty fast. But then we'd get like the Avengers on here or some crap.
Yeah. If it was based purely on this like on-screen filmic quality, this movie is probably, in the 90s would probably still stick on, but like, they ever revised it, if it fell off, I don't think anybody would be crying about it. But cultural impact, I feel it sticks on.
Cultural impact, the whole idea behind the movie, this like pioneering like guerrilla filmmaking in a movie that wins Film of the Year.
Yeah, that's another crazy thing. It's a guerrilla, low budget, makes all this money, critical financial darling, and it wins Best Picture. This movie was shot mostly illegally, and it won Best Picture of the Year. That's crazy. That's like
William Friedkin?
William Friedkin, Best Director.
His cock must be huge.
Oh, God. But, dude, that's like shots fired. It's like, hey, everybody, this, bang, New Hollywood with a button. Great. Bonnie and Clyde also won, its Best Picture and all those awards, but that was shot, like, with, like, studio backing, and it's like, there's sets, and there's production design, all this other stuff. It wasn't guerrilla. This was like, we got a camera, some great actors, a good story, and a will. Let's fucking do this.
Yeah, crazy. Just so good.
But yeah, so, any final thoughts?
Way better than I thought it would be.
Story of the year.
The comeback of the century here, with my opinion on the French Connection. Just wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. Just kind of making a comeback from like having a really bad opinion of it, and then over the course of only an hour, just having this huge epiphany on it. I couldn't see the French Connection through the film. I couldn't see it.
I can't wait for us to get to us ranking these first 10 films. I want to see where French Connection will rank for you.
I know, right?
But
goodness.
We didn't even mention that. So, do you think this is in the right spot at 93? Because it dropped 70 to 93. Do you think 93 is the right spot for it?
Maybe bump it up a little bit.
Couple of spots,
but
maybe one or two.
Here's the thing: is like all the movies where I'm like, maybe bump it up a little bit. It's like, well, you can't just bump movies up. Some movies have to come down. We've got like 9 movies in. I've said like 4 of them or 5 of them we should, or not 9 movies in. We're like 7 movies in, and I'm like, 4 of them I'm like definitely bump up. 2 of them I'm like, maybe, and only one of them I'm like, you bring it down.
Only one.
Only Yankee Doodle Dandy. I'm like, get that shit out of here.
Yeah, and even Yankee Doodle Dandy, yeah, bring it down. But I don't know if it comes off.
But I don't know if it's kind of,
It's like, James Cagney's just
too good. So good in that movie. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous how good he is in that movie.
Dude, James Cagney.
The guy should win like 4 Best Actor Oscars for one role.
Dude, James Cagney is so good. He is carrying that movie like 70 years after it's been made. On this fucking list. Actually, longer than that.
80.
So that's how good he is. He's been carrying this movie for 80 fucking years.
And it's on this list.
It ain't going
80 years he's been carrying this movie. It's still here.
Oh, God, you gotta love it. Yeah.
French Connection, pretty good. Gene Hackman. Almost said Hugh Jackman again.
Well, Hugh Jackman.
Gene Hackman in this movie, really good acting. I mean, pretty much carries it by himself. Because the movie's all about him. Just like how, what's it called? Yankee Doodle Dandy is all about
James Cagney.
And so, really good acting, really well shot, really well edited, good story, good action, just a good movie to watch. And when you really dig into it, a good overall experience, a good movie to put on the AFI. Really, really, kind of pin the gritty crime drama onto the AFI.
And with next week, we're going to get into more of that gritty crime drama.
But from the other side of the aisle.
Yes, sir, because we're going with a gritty crime film, a gangster film directed by your favorite director?
Definitely top 3.
Mr. Martin
Scorsese.
Goodfellas. The movie famously did not win Best Picture.
Who won over it?
No one remembers. It just... I'm sorry. Dances with Wolves.
Oh, I've never seen Dances with Wolves, but I've heard good things about it.
Yeah. But...
Didn't Dances with Wolves get on this list and then come off?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty good. I like that.
But yeah, so we have Goodfellas showing up. I'm very excited. How do you think that one's going to go?
I mean, I love that movie already. I've probably seen it 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, but you're a casino guy.
I do like Casino a lot, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to watch Goodfellas again, and I'm going to flip back over, I'm a flip-flopper with that. I watch Goodfellas, I'm like, Goodfellas is the better one. I watch Casino, I'm like, Casino is probably actually better. I watch Goodfellas again, maybe Goodfellas is better.
I mean, it's going to be interesting because...
I got that recency bias with those 2 movies, I can't decide.
I mean, this is going to be an interesting one because I'm going to break some news to you, Randy. Goodfellas is a movie that people think shouldn't be on the list.
Really?
Yeah.
Are there other Martin Scorsese movies on this list?
Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, those are both on the list. I believe those are the only 3. Goodfellas, Taxi Driver, and Raging Bull are the only 3 on the list.
Maybe he is taking up too many spots. Ooh. But Goodfellas is so good, though.
I mean, that's going to be an interesting thing because when we talk about Goodfellas, we really should talk is there anything that would go on the list from Martin Scorsese from recent years? Because again, they cut everything from 2001 up. Out. Yes. So there's no Silence isn't in here. Wolf of Wall Street has never been in consideration.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Irishman has never been in consideration.
Shutter Island wasn't out, right?
Shutter Island wasn't out yet.
Man, why does he make so many goddamn good movies? They should just make the fuck it. We'll rip the bottom 10 off and just put all the Martin Scorsese movies ever been made on the bottom 10.
There's a lot more than 10. I'll tell you
that. We'll put the top 10. We could definitely get a top 10 Martin Scorsese movies in here.
Or Scorsese needs to take that 5 spot from Spielberg because Spielberg has the most on here.
He's got 5.
Yeah, he's got 5.
That's big game.
Yeah, Spielberg has 5. Scorsese, Kubrick, and Billy Wilder all have 3 apiece.
Billy Wilder?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Oh, you're gonna love Billy Wilder.
No.
I'm looking at you right now. You'll love Billy Wilder.
Okay.
But with that, we'll see y'all next week. If you want to keep up with us, you can check us out on our Spotify, on our Anchor FM, Apple Podcast, all of it as the Film Odyssey. And you can also check us out on our YouTube channel, In the Frame, where you can find us there, as well as the Film Club and the Double Feature Picture Show. And, good night, everyone.